Have you ever felt that just one offhand comment, a seemingly minor failure, was enough to shake your peace of mind? If so, you're not alone. Like many others, you may have been unknowingly handing over the control of your emotions to the outside world. The truth is, the strongest people aren't those with fewer problems. They're the ones who have trained themselves to stay calm amid life's constant turbulence. They don't let emotions toss them around like stormy waves. They choose instead to stand firm like a rock in the middle of the sea. Imagine living a day without being weighed down by judgment, without getting pulled into emotional battles that lead nowhere, and without feeling ruled by unpredictable moods. Instead, you respond with clarity, act with intention, and live with a kind of mental freedom where you decide how you feel, not others. That's the mindset of someone who cannot be easily shaken. And it doesn't come from cold detachment. It comes from deep understanding of oneself and the world. Life by its nature offers no shortage of challenges, conflicting opinions, societal pressures, sudden setbacks, unexpected outcomes. If you allow all of this to dictate your emotional state, you'll live in a cycle of exhaustion and vulnerability. But if you learn to take a step back to observe instead of instantly react, you'll realize something powerful. You don't have to give a response to everything. Not everything that happens deserves your energy or attention. The real difference between those who break down and those who stay centered lies in their inner reflexes. The reactive person lets emotions lead and instincts decide. The resilient person takes a moment to pause, assess, and respond with reason. Choosing not to react isn't weakness or avoidance. It's a declaration, I am the one in charge here. It is an act of power, not passivity. A key practice to maintain emotional strength is visualization. See yourself as someone who moves calmly through discomfort. Picture yourself being unfazed by criticism, treating failure as a step, not the end, and viewing judgmental looks as nothing more than background noise. The more often you rehearse this version of yourself in your mind, the more naturally you'll start to embody it in real life. And once you live that way, not bitter, not easily provoked, not fighting every petty battle, people will begin to sense something different about you. A silent power. They won't quite understand how you remain so composed, and it's precisely that mystery that earns their respect. You won't need to shout to be heard. You won't need to prove anything. Your calm presence alone will speak louder than words. But be careful not to confuse emotional mastery with emotional suppression. The person who controls their emotions is not emotionally numb. They're deeply aware of what they feel and choose how and when to express it. They don't pretend everything is fine, but they also don't let every emotional wave drag them under. They hold their inner peace like a sacred treasure, one not given away easily. When you can remain in that state of awareness, even in the most stressful moments, your entire perspective shifts. Insults lose their sting. Failures become teachers. Things beyond your control no longer shake you because you realize the one thing you always own is your attitude, and in that moment when you stop reacting, you rise above it all. The world can only hurt you if you let it. But if you choose to build a solid inner sanctuary where your worth isn't determined by praise or recognition, you've claimed a kind of power that no one can take away. Start small, a harsh comment that makes you angry. Don't react right away. A failure that disheartens you, don't give up so quickly. A glance that makes you feel judged, let it pass without a trace. Each time you choose not to react, you lay another brick in the fortress of your inner self, and brick by brick over time, you become someone unshakable. So when the storm inevitably comes, you won't need to shout fight or resist. You'll simply remain standing calm, firm, and untouched. When you learn to step back from setbacks and disappointments, you liberate yourself to move forward unimpeded. Far too often, ambitious individuals abandon their dreams at the first sign of adversity, overwhelmed by fear, self-doubt, or irritation. However, those who cultivate emotional detachment recognize that feelings are transient and do not have to steer their long-term aims. They remain steadfast, viewing hurdles as opportunities to grow rather than insurmountable barriers. Embracing detachment doesn't render you unfeeling or aloof. It simply means you refuse to let external circumstances hijack your inner calm. You may still feel joy, sorrow, or excitement, but you choose how and when those emotions influence your actions. To hone this mindset practice, adopting a neutral observer's stance in charged moments. The next time someone lashes out at you, pause before you respond. Notice your emotional reaction and ask yourself, will this matter significantly in a month or a year? You'll often find it won't. By withholding an immediate reaction, you strip away the other person's power to unsettle you. A clear, compelling purpose is another cornerstone of detachment. When your vision is vivid, trivial interruptions lose their grip. You move through the world with unwavering focus because you know your time and energy are too precious to squander on what doesn't advance your goals. In every situation, you respond deliberately rather than react impulsively, and that strategic composure becomes your greatest asset. While most people frantically chase reassurance or seethe at criticism, you remain centered and unruffled, earning respect through your quiet confidence. True resilience arises not from physical strength or vocal bravado, but from an unshakable presence. Mastering emotional detachment allows you not merely to cope with life's upheavals, but to direct your path with intention. This ability, what some call mindful indifference, is a kind of superpower. Society teaches us to fret over every judgment, to constantly seek approval, and to measure our worth by the opinions of others. Yet the real secret to freedom lies in accepting that the vast majority of things simply aren't worth your concern. Whenever you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking about someone's critique or a minor mishap, ask, will this matter 5 years from now? If the answer is no, let it go. Most worries and embarrassments, given enough distance, fade into insignificance. When you stop investing your mental energy in every passing concern, you shift from being emotionally reactive to strategically responsive, and that shift transforms everything. Consider the people you admire most. They aren't the ones clamoring for applause or crumbling at the slightest opposition. Instead, they stand firm amid the world's clamor because they've cultivated an unwavering belief in themselves. Their inner stability makes them impervious to manipulation and yields a magnetic authority that demands respect without a word. Imagine someone levels an unfair criticism at you. The less disciplined mind scrambles to defend, explain, or retaliate, inadvertently reinforcing the critic's influence. The emotionally detached individual, by contrast, remains composed. They recognize that words carry only as much power as they permit. By choosing not to react, they preserve control over both the situation and themselves, and their self-possession commands far more admiration than any outburst ever could. The path to greatness is not paved with endless drama, but with disciplined focus. Those who achieve remarkable feats concentrate exclusively on what matters, mastering their craft, pursuing their purpose, and safeguarding their mental clarity. They understand that every minute spent fretting over trivialities is a minute stolen from their progress. So, how do you develop this degree of equanimity? Begin by scrutinizing your emotional triggers. When you feel anger, frustration, or anxiety rising over something minor, pause and question whether it deserves your attention. More often than not, you'll discover it doesn't. Next, define your top priorities, your core values, your long-term ambitions, your personal well-being. When you ground yourself in what truly counts, the rest holds no sway. Detachment isn't about shutting off your heart, it's about directing its capacity wisely. It's the art of distinguishing between battles worth fighting and distractions best ignored. With practice, you learn to let criticism pass through you, accepting any kernels of truth and discarding the rest, all without losing your composure. Criticism itself splits into two categories: constructive feedback, which you can learn from, and destructive remarks, which you should simply dismiss. By filtering every comment through the lens of logic rather than emotion, you maintain control of your self-image and your trajectory. This measured approach sharpens your resilience and fortifies your self-respect. The final piece of this mindset puzzle is self-validation. Celebrate your victories, both large and small, internally, and you become less dependent on external praise. When you understand your own worth, the need for others' approval evaporates. You act in alignment with your authentic self, unfiltered by the desire to fit in or to be liked. In the end, true empowerment is not about caring less, but about caring with intention. Choose to expend your emotional energy on pursuits that uplift and propel you forward. Refuse to be sidetracked by petty judgments or hollow expectations. When you master the art of strategic indifference, you not only endure life's storms, you sail through them, charting your own course with clarity, purpose, and unstoppable resolve. When feedback comes from those who genuinely care and know their craft, it becomes a gift that sharpens your skills and broadens your perspective. Constructive criticism is offered by people with experience and a sincere wish to see you improve, and that's the kind you should embrace. By contrast, destructive remarks are born of envy, insecurity, or simple ignorance. They serve no purpose unless you allow them to wound your self-esteem. Picture a sculptor at work on his magnum opus. Curious onlookers gather some offer thoughtful tips, others cheer him on, and a few jeer at his efforts. Does he abandon his vision because of a handful of jeers? Of course not. He carries on guided by his own purpose, filtering out the needless clamor. You can handle criticism the same way. Before you let someone's words sink in, ask yourself whether they have the background or insight to speak on your work. If they do, consider their advice. If they don't, simply let it pass. Criticism tests the toughness of your mind. Those who falter, give in to impulse, grow defensive, or retreat into doubt. The truly resilient pause, sift through what's useful, and discard the rest, always protecting their inner calm. When you respond to critique with measured poise, you broadcast to the world that your confidence is unbreakable. Think of the visionaries of history. Everyone endured relentless skepticism, yet they pressed on, certain that every challenge was simply the toll of progress. Developing this mindset starts with deliberate detachment. When someone criticizes you, take a breath. Don't react instantly. Instead, assess whether there's value in their words. If there is, learn and adapt. If not, move on. Over time, this habit frees you from the emotional drag of seeking approval. A second powerful tool is self-affirmation. When you truly believe in yourself, external judgments lose their bite and you stand immune to hollow disparagement. Pressure, too, reveals our true character. Some crack under stress, but the strongest remain composed because they've trained themselves to expect friction. They don't cling to perfect outcomes. They accept that setbacks, surprises, and disappointments are inevitable. Like a seasoned warrior braced for battle, they enter the fray with mental readiness, transforming chaos into a proving ground for their discipline. When pressure mounts, they don't panic. They calculate and execute, all the while maintaining their serenity. To cultivate this steadiness, reframe pressure as a challenge rather than a threat. Observe your rising emotions without letting them dictate your actions. Complement this mental rehearsal with practical preparation. Visualize worst-case scenarios. Practice your responses and condition yourself to remain unflappable. In doing so, you shift from being a reactor to a strategist, wielding composure as your secret weapon. Finally, recognize the futility of clinging to what you cannot govern. Suffering often springs from tight-fisted expectations of how life should unfold. Imagine water flowing down a river. It doesn't fight the rocks in its path. It simply curves around them and continues on. When you let go of rigid outcomes, be it a missed opportunity, a broken promise, or an unforeseen detour, you release yourself from needless anguish. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, grant it your forgiveness and redirect your energy towards what you can shape. In the end, true strength isn't about numbing your heart, but about choosing where to invest its power. By welcoming constructive insights, dismissing destructive noise, mastering calm under fire, and releasing unattainable expectations, you forge an unshakable spirit. You won't merely survive life's storms, you'll steer through them with clarity, purpose, and an unwavering resolve. Begin by deliberately channeling your energy into actions that propel you forward instead of allowing irritation to derail your progress. Detachment is not a birthright, but a skill you strengthen through consistent practice, beginning with the small annoyances that pepper everyday life. The endless queue at the coffee shop, the crawl of traffic during your commute, or the abrupt cancellation of plans you were looking forward to. Take a moment when each of these minor frustrations arises to pause and observe the sensation of annoyance without immediately reacting. Notice how liberating it feels to refuse the impulse to lash out or stew in resentment, and how your mood remains steadier when you withhold your emotional response. Over time, extend this same approach to more significant hurdles. Deadlines that catch you off guard, conflicts that flare up unexpectedly, or setbacks that threaten to knock you off course, and you will find that your capacity for calm detachment grows stronger at each turn. It is critical to understand that detachment and indifference are not synonymous. Indifference is the cold shutting down of feeling, a refusal to engage with life and its richness. Detachment, in contrast, is a conscious decision to be fully present while refusing to let the world's unpredictability hijack your inner peace. You can care deeply about your goals, your relationships, and your personal growth, yet remain unflappable when events deviate from your expectations. When you release your grip on outcomes beyond your control, you stand apart, composed in the face of chaos, admired for a tranquil resilience that those mired in frustration can scarcely fathom. Cultivating this mindset requires deliberate daily practice. Each morning, take a moment to note 3 small things you appreciate, whether it's the warmth of your coffee mug, a brisk walk that clears your head, or a kind exchange with a colleague. These simple acts of gratitude prime your mind against negativity and build the mental muscles needed for detachment. Throughout the day, challenge yourself with micro-tests of self-control. Choose the longer route up the stairs instead of the elevator. Hold your response in a minor disagreement, or wake up 15 minutes earlier than usual. Each time you opt for the more difficult path, you reinforce the neural circuits that favor discipline over comfort. Silence is another powerful ally in your journey toward greater influence and self-mastery. In a culture that equates talking with engagement, allowing conversational pauses to linger becomes your stealth advantage. While most people feel compelled to fill every gap with chatter, the truly formidable listen intently, absorbing tone, body language, and subtext that often escape those who speak too quickly. When you finally do choose to speak, do so with precision and purpose, ensuring that each word carries weight. In negotiations, for example, a well-timed pause after an offer can create tension so uncomfortable that your counterpart begins to second-guess their terms and even sweeten them all while you remain silent. In everyday interactions, your restraint forces others to reveal their intentions, fears, and opportunities you might otherwise miss. Equanimity under pressure is not a talent you either possess or lack. It emerges from targeted mental conditioning. Treat your mind as you would a growing muscle, subjecting it to regular measured challenges that demand you resist habitual impulses. When stress hits, silently count to 3 before reacting, granting yourself the luxury of a brief interlude in which you can choose a thoughtful response. Employ a simple breathing technique. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 4 to reset your nervous system and restore clarity. Like an athlete visualizing their performance under ideal and adverse conditions, mentally rehearse obstacles you might face and practice your calm responses. By consistently reframing pressure as an opportunity to demonstrate discipline rather than a threat to your composure, you transform stress into a proving ground for self-mastery. Another essential pillar of this practice is distinguishing what you can control from what you cannot. Picture a river flowing around stones. It neither fights nor frets over obstacles, but adapts its course with effortless grace. When you catch yourself obsessing over an outcome, whether that promotion you've been chasing or another person's approval, assume. Ask, is this within my sphere of influence? If it isn't, consciously release it, freeing your energy for tasks where your actions truly make a difference. Each time you let go of an uncontrollable variable, you unburden yourself and remain poised to respond effectively to whatever unfolds. True achievement rarely comes with fanfare. It grows quietly through consistent, focused effort. Keep your long-term ambitions private. Sharing them only with those who support is essential. Devote your public attention to tangible progress rather than intentions or explanations. Over time, this approach preserves your strategic advantage and keeps detractors off balance by the time the world takes notice of your success. Your momentum is already unstoppable. Let your accomplishments speak for themselves, knowing that the less you signal your next move, the greater the intrigue and the more powerful the eventual impact. These disciplines, daily acts of detachment, strategic silence, mental rehearsal under pressure, conscientious, release of the uncontrollable, and discrete results-driven execution interlock to form an unshakable foundation. As you move through life, you will no longer be buffeted by every breeze of circumstance, but will chart your course with calm intention. When challenges arise, you will adapt fluidly. When criticism comes, you will sift only the useful truths and discard the rest. When opportunities knock, you will be ready to act decisively. Over time, detachment transcends an abstract ideal and becomes your default operating mode, a reservoir of inner calm that channels frustration into forward momentum, pressure into performance, and silence into strategic influence. In doing so, you transform from a reactive participant into a masterful architect of your destiny, navigating life's storms with clarity, purpose, and an unwavering serenity that naturally commands respect and admiration.